Welcome to the Current Report podcast. My name is Cece Woods. I'm an investigative journalist at thecurrentreport.com. And Mr. Roy was the Malibu Rebuild ambassador. And last week, the story of him stepping down made national news. Not for all the right reasons, though. I mean, we're appreciative of the coverage, but the story did not get conveyed the way it needed to get conveyed. So let's start back at the beginning and tell me how this whole task force came to be. Obviously, we know it started with the Palisades fire.
Look, right after this, within really a couple days, maybe 3 days after the 7th of Jan, a bunch of us residents got together on a call and said, hey, we have to help rebuild, and there are a number of things that we can do in terms of offering suggestions and ideas to the city, also figuring out how to fire harden not only our homes but our community, also working out how we work with other agencies that were at play to sort of conduct this devastation, so to speak. So we banded together passionate individuals, right? I mean, these are so talented, so committed folks, and we spent hours and hours talking through stuff. I remember, Cece, within like about 10 days, maybe, we even created sort of like a flow chart of what a simplified permitting process could look like that would create a real fast lane that would involve folks getting over-the-counter planning approvals and 2 weeks of, building approvals. Just in the immediate aftermath, and this is what, I've shared this story in public before. My house was the only one standing on the street, and it was a very emotional moment when I learned about it because we thought everything was lost. Our other house where we used to live burned to the ground. And it was a moment of awakening, so to speak, where it's like there must be a reason, because the fires came so close to my house. Everything around it is charred, but almost miraculously my house is standing there. There's got to be some reason for that, and that was really the call to action. Is like, okay, I gotta step in here and help my neighbors get back up on their feet. Now, notwithstanding that, we spent hours and hours on the phone talking through people. People would call me because they knew I was a builder, a successful builder in LA. It's like, Abe, how long is this going to take? I've never built a house before. Heck, I haven't even remodeled my house before. What is it going to take? And look, I was very naive. I said, guys, one of my neighbors, Jimmy, he was extremely distraught. He's still very distraught. I was like, Jimmy, this is not hard. We build homes. We're not trying to land anybody in Mars. We're not trying to put a chip in somebody's brain to restore vision. We can build this house. We'll get your permits by spring. We'll get started. You'll be back in your house in a year. And this is very doable. So that was our mindset, Cece, is that this is doable. We are not building exotic structures. We're building, fairly straightforward ranch-style California, classic homes. And this is not that hard. And so we began conversations in earnest, thinking that we were collaborating, we were participating, we were offering our ideas, because guess who knows our geology, our topography, our oceans, the height of the waves the best? The people that have lived here for 50 years, Cece.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so we thought we had good ideas to make, good suggestions to make, and we would, and the city would sort of open their arms and welcome input in the wake of this massive disaster, which people's lives have been completely upended. Little did we realize that we were getting lip service all along. Okay, so we had initial few meetings where it's like, yeah, guys, we're in this together. Tell us your thoughts and stuff. And that flow chart that I was talking to you, Cece, about, that we had sent to them maybe 2 weeks in advance of this, we said, yeah, this is great. We'll look into it. And of course, weeks later, months later, you find that it's been completely discarded to the side, and they've kind of done their own thing. So we started to get more and more amped about this, and I'm talking about April, May, when we started feeling like, look, we aren't being heard. We have a number of good ideas to make. There are very talented individuals amongst us, architects, home builders, people that have built refineries, for crying out loud. These guys are badasses at construction. Okay, they're donating their time, and we want to do this together. So the residents lobbied the petition to create a position like mine. we started like a rebuild ambassador where I'd have sort of like a quasi seat at the table and we could funnel up residents' concerns and ideas and work together to resolve. Now, initially, there was a lot of pushback, obviously from the city as well as from the council. I think we had about half a council member on board with this. Well, this has never been done before. How can a resident be, be part of City
Who were
Hall
the
and things like
council
that?
members?
Helen Conrad was very supportive of it right from the start. I think, she's new. She's coming into it with a fresh mindset. She's not ingrained in the system, so to speak. So Helen, called me right after and said, "Hey, look, I don't even know you. We haven't worked together, but your success is my success, and let's talk through this." So we had long conversations, and then subsequently we had one-on-one conversations with a number of the other council members. So by the time it came to vote, Cece, on the 21st of May, if I recall correctly, we had a 5-0 vote in the favor of creating this position. It was a great evening for the residents. I came back home after the voting at right 11:30 at night, and our text messages were flowing. This is going to be the turning point in our saga. We thought we had scored a massive, important milestone, and there was a lot of optimism, Cece. So I began my conversations with the city. Of course, they put me under this contract where there was like a endless litany of things that I could or couldn't do. And, some people objected that, look, they're trying to clip your wings even before in the role. I said, look, guys, that's okay. I understand their consternation because this has never been done before. They don't know how I'm like, they don't know if I'm going to go in there and create a ruckus or whatever it is. So, so that's how it sort of began. We started with very sort of.
Wait, I have a question. I'm sorry. So you got to the point where you got a 5-0 vote from council to establish this task force of which you are going to head, correct?
Well, the task force was already in place.
Okay, well, then the ambassador part of
The
it.
ambassador position, that's correct.
So
the task force had already existed. We had collected individuals' representation from all across the fire-affected areas in Malibu. So there were about 17 members of the task force, and they're each responsible for a zone, as we call it, which comprises of maybe 40 homes at the low end to 80 homes at the high end. And they act as the connection, as the conduit, as a liaison for those homeowners. In addition, we have folks from the Public Works Commission. In addition, we have folks who are experts in fire hardening, and we have local architects on the team. So collectively, we are a very well-rounded team with representation from all the different fire-affected areas and a good body of knowledge. So that had already existed. I was leading that up until now. The 5-0 vote was to establish the rebuild ambassador position.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you're established now. You're the ambassador, and the city is basically saying, we're going to give you 3 months. Like, why would they even give you? Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just say,
look, I don't.
You're the rebuild ambassador.
Yeah,
this is your position. You work with the city and homeowners, and we can. Not even a revisit. I mean, why would you need to revisit a position unless the homeowners themselves are complaining that you're not doing what they need to do? Why on earth would you need to revisit this position? And the 90-day period that they put in there just told me right there that likely, no matter what, even if you hadn't called them out or found these discrepancies or found the efforts to derail permits from being issued, chances are they would have probably clipped that position, knowing how the city of Malibu works, especially city staff.
Yeah, look, in the moment, I was trying to rationalize it, right? In the sense that, look, this has never been done before. I understand there are reservations and things like that. So I was confident that this 3-month thing is not even going to come up because this is going to be extremely successful. We are talking about common sense things. Residents have a voice. This is a great thing in our progress, in our story here. Now, in hindsight, it was clear that there was never really a real intention to collaborate.
Yeah.
And it was done because they were facing a tremendous amount of pressure from the residents because nothing was happening. If you look at the recordings of the council meetings, there were residents after resident that got up on the mic and said, we want this, we want Abe in this role, and so on and so forth. And they acquiesced. But that was it. That was it. They were checking the box. They were really not interested in either what I had to say, offer up, or genuinely collaborate. And this became apparent to me after maybe the first few weeks of the meetings that I had with them. Every meeting would sort of almost be a little bit of a battle. It's like, well, what happened here? Why is this taking so long? Why are we not doing this? And these were, in my mind, common sense arguments, but clearly the city wasn't taking very favorably to it. So this continued to escalate. Now, all the while, Cece, I'll say this, that as much as behind closed doors we were having heated conversations and tough meetings and holding accountable and things like that, in public, I was actually complimenting, well, I wouldn't say complimenting, but I was advocating in favor of what the city staff goes through on a day-to-day basis. They, in fact, do go through a lot. There is a crane overturning here. There is somebody set up a light here. There was an accident on PCH. So a city is alive and well and it's still running. And yet, that is no excuse. And yet, that is no excuse to leave rebuilders, fire rebuilders out in the cold, out in the dry. So that was the point. So I advocated for some of that, is that, guys, and I asked my resident constituents, guys, let's just kind of tone it down a little bit. Let's give it some time to get this in place. And you'll notice that there was a significant difference in sort of the residents getting up and airing their complaints, their emails to council and things like that. It was all sort of under the lid, so to speak, if you will, because we were thinking that progress is just starting to happen. We were, upset about the whole thing, but okay, this was all starting to happen until it all came to a pass this, weekend before last, and everything just blew up.
Okay, so let's talk about what led up to your forced resignation, because that's there's no way around that. It was a forced resignation based on interim city manager Candace Bond, who basically did not like city staff being micromanaged, or in her words, maybe micromanaged, when all you're doing is advocating for the residents, and what they need to get their permits through. And so walk us through what led up to the conversation that you had the Friday before city council.
Yeah, look, I got a call late evening on a Friday from Candace, basically stating that they were going to give me a commendation for outstanding work that was done. And by the way, Cece, it's important to note that even though the contract was 3 months, those 3 months had ended sometime in the middle of August, right? So I continued in my role, and what does a contract even really mean when it's a gratis contract? Nobody's getting paid, none of that. So,
Yeah.
meetings continued to happen, all of that continued to happen. So this contract thing was just completely new. It's like, oh God, the contract's up. We can't do this anymore, sort of thing. But in any event, I got the message that I'll receive a commendation, and my first response was absolutely not. I'm not going to stand up and accept an award and things like that. That is just flat out offensive. That is just flat out offensive to my neighbors and the resident constituents who are struggling so much. So let's put that aside. Then it was also said that that would also mark the end of my term. And I kind of listened, and if there are any ideas you want to offer up, I said, look, I need to process it. And in the meantime, when I shared the note with my Malibu Rebuild Task Force members, they were obviously livid.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I saw the emails.
yeah, the text messages were blowing up even as I was talking with Candace on the phone, because this information had sort of leaked out a little bit before, maybe just about an hour before I got the call. And my phone was just blowing up. So I told Candace, look, I can't even speak to you because I'm getting so many pings right now. So we'll have to talk later about all of this. Now, obviously, that evening, that Saturday, people were up in arms. They were emailing council. Some I was copied on, some I wasn't even copied on. They were texting council, they were calling council members. It's like, what the F is going on here? Now, on Saturday, one of the council members actually called me and said, "Hey, we talk for a little bit?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Look, I'm hearing some of these things, and you know me, I always like to verify things at the source." I said, "Well, what are you hearing?" And they said, "Look, there are these personal allegation type things that are being surfaced." I said, what are they? No, in all candor, that was Bruce Silverstein who actually made the call to me
Yeah, I
to
was going to say that sounds like Bruce.
yeah, and to his credit, where he said, "Look, you know me, you know where I'm coming from. We've had extensive conversations before, and indeed, Bruce and I, not necessarily we agree on all topics, but we've had a number of topics on a lot of different things. I know his heart's in the right place to try to get us to rebuild as fast as possible. Um, so he brought up a couple of things which really were disturbing. One of which was, of course, the cliched narrative is this: okay, Abe's doing this to benefit himself personally. And I was like, okay, that's a total head scratcher because first of all, why would a successful private sector entrepreneur, spend hours and hours, thousands of hours, literally, CC, not only me, but all the Malibu Rebuild Task Force members, thousands of hours since Jan 7th, gratis. In what respect? And secondly, what was even more sort of ironic was the city is bringing this up, which basically is saying the city would provide favorable treatment for those that are connected with folks within the city. I mean, what sort of nonsense is that, right? I mean, so that was extremely stupid of them to try to start that whisper campaign. And then there were some other things that were even sillier. Like I had a conversation with the New Zealanders that bought the lots and things. And indeed, I had a conversation, and that conversation was out in the public. That was part of the pod, that we had, and people appreciated that so much because there was so much misinformation around what those guys were trying to do. So we cleared the air. The third was I had a conversation with the LA City building official. Like he was a top guy in LA City building official. And I said, hell yeah, we need to have this conversation because
Of
you guys
course.
aren't having the conversations. They are moving a heck of a lot faster. Now, by no means they're the benchmark. They can certainly do things better. And that was the first thing the guy told us on the phone. Look, I mean, there were a number of things that we were working. And you know what? The important thing, CC, is that we actually learned some useful information from that conversation. And yet, nobody from the city or the council asked me what I learned from the conversation. They all knew I had the conversation, but nobody bothered to ask why the hell are they 40 times faster than us? But instead, they chose to focus on some semantics, which is not even true, that I represent myself as a city ambassador, not a rebuild ambassador. Now, what kind of nonsense is this, right? I mean, are they really interested in helping us rebuild?
It's
So,
it's
so
it's political gaslighting. That's just what it is. And that's what
yeah,
they do. They deflect.
Yeah,
And
so I think those things were being whispered into council's ears individually. I don't think they met together, which one can argue whether this was a violation of the Brown Act because clearly it was said that my term would be not ending in 3 months, but there would be a review conducted at the end of 3 months and decided whether it was going to be extended or not. Now, I personally never viewed my term as for years and years. I would personally always view my term as look, when the large set of issues we are discussing are resolved, when we have a cadence of permits and we are down to property by property, as I would call them, idiosyncratic issues, then I'm done. So I in no way, shape, or form. I mean, look, I got a business to run. I can't do this forever. But I was viewing this as any sort of permanency. But nonetheless, taking you back to the weekend when this thing happened, I of course when any time anything happens, I always call my team first. MRTF. We are very close. We have a lot of faith and trust in each other, and they're the sounding board. And I always remember that. Look, this is not about me. This is about me representing their views, and they're bringing the views of their zone. So I'm their spokesperson at the end of the day. And I said, look, this is the situation. Here's my thought: is that it's very clear and obvious that they're not really interested in them working. And if I continue to push this format, it's just going to be another couple of weeks of wrangling, and they'll figure out a way to end this anyway. I might as well just get out and say what I have to. So that's what prompted the resignation. They had taken the agenda item off of that council meeting on Monday.
but wait,
So
I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. Didn't Candace tell you that your term was up and they were giving you the commendation on Monday and that like done by see you later? Like there was no previous talk about it.
there was
How did
absolutely no
you
previous talk. There was
right?
absolutely no previous talk about it. If anything, there was previous talk that same week about how we should maybe reformat the cadence of meetings. We said, you know what, maybe we should bring in the zone captains to the meetings as well, and then change the frequency of my meetings with them and things like that. So in fact, there was conversation the week leading up to this blow up as to how we would work together in maybe a different format and things like that. So that was the other surprising and disappointing part about all this.
Okay, so what about Marianne's role in this?
Well, so it appears, look, we don't know all this to be the fact,
And
but from what
to
Marianne
be
said,
clear, Marianne Riggins is the mayor of Malibu. And this is not an elected mayor position. This is an elected city council member position. And we go through each council member who has 9 months to be mayor. It is now Marianne's opportunity to be mayor. And she came on, I think, in April when Doug stepped down. So, yeah,
that's
let's
correct.
talk
Yeah.
about Marianne's role because she has a very big role in this.
Yeah,
And
I think
that's a
she
problem.
probably has the biggest role in it,
Yeah.
if I may add. Probably a much bigger role than Candace does. Candace is fairly new in all of this. She's just trying to figure out. In fact, I don't think she was even aware that there was a contract that I had. I think look, they were clearly not happy about this. They were clearly not happy about me, calling them out on stuff, getting more vocal about the miserable scorecard that we have, and calling them out on fairly basic things that can be done, that should have been done many, many months ago and still weren't being done. So I think they just wanted to get me out of their hair. And what? So I think they probably got together and said, okay, well, here's one way to say the contract is up. Thank you. Give the guy his flowers and send him on his way.
Mm-hmm.
And Marianne was part of that. I don't know whose idea it was, but certainly Marianne was part of that. She owned up to that at the council meeting. When all the conversations were happening after I resigned, there were a ton of public comments that went on, and comments were blowing up. Marianne, took the mic and said, "I take responsibility for I don't remember the exact word she used for the Abe Roy debacle or fiasco or something like that." She said, and then she laid out what had happened. And what had happened was they got together, Candace and Marianne, and then they called each of the council members saying this is what they were going to do. They didn't have a joint meeting, so every council member didn't know what the other council member was sort of hearing, and they all kind of sort of acquiesced it. A couple of them weren't even aware that this really marked the end of my termination, as Bruce said, that he was shocked to find out that they in fact had meant the termination. So clearly that was that. That was that. It was extremely disappointing. But what is more upsetting, Cece, is Marianne's commentary up to this point. Again, I always say that this is not about me. This is about people getting back home, and this is about the improvements that can be done. And what was upsetting was not only the way she sort of orchestrated this, but this is yet another evidence of her mindset. And that is disturbing. That's why I am calling on her to resign from the mayorship, because we need absolutely different leadership at the helm. Look, she's been on public record stating multiple times that Woolsey recovery is a success. Get this. At
Oh
about
my God.
45, at about 43% of whatever it is that we are rebuilt after 7 years, the Woolsey recovery is a success. That is such a slap in the face of
Again,
people in
Olympic
Woolsey.
level political gaslighting. It is
Yes,
happening
there
everywhere.
is, there are families that are struggling to rebuild. I've met some of those families. Their lives have fallen apart, and we call it a success. She has gone on record a couple months back. She went on record and said, the city of Malibu needs to teach a master class in building.
Oh my
These are her
goodness.
words. A master class in building. And we're sitting in the audience and going aghast. It's like, okay, but here's the problem. If you have a mindset that you got this, which was basically my ousting, right? It's a, hey, thanks, man. We don't really need you. We got this on our own. If that's the mindset, then how can you ever improve? Or do you even have the desire to improve? And that's what we need to fundamentally change, Cece.
There's no question about that. And I've been around through 3 fires now, okay, starting in 2007. And I have been reporting on Malibu politics for over 14 years. So I totally agree with you. When the Woolsey fire happened, I was there. I was on the ground. I talked to firefighters. I took pictures of the fire engines that were idle while people were going, there's a spot fire over there. This was the day after Woolsey. There's a spot fire over there. If it's not taken care of, it's going to take down that house. Sure enough, it took down that house. And so, and actually that house was Camille Grammer. She was on Beverly Hills Housewives, and that was her house. And we were standing there, and we knew that would happen if they didn't get to it, and they did not move. And that was by order. It is a similar order to what happened with the Palisades fire. Very
Yep.
similar, no question about it. So, but
Yep.
during Woolsey, we watched how residents were cockblocked not only by the county services to put out the fires that they pay for with their tax dollars, we watched them stop us from getting the necessary supplies that we needed to take care of ourselves for more than 2 weeks while the city was completely shut down. And I've been reporting on that. And so now with the Palisades fire, it's the same. And I said it was a land grab back then. Now
It is
with
just
this,
really,
it's
it is
it,
just
it has to
really,
be.
it is just really difficult to understand
Yeah.
the motivation. It is just really difficult to understand why common sense ideas cannot be put in place. We are being asked for stuff to replace the same house, the same box that somebody had in place. We're being asked for stuff like we're building the freaking Taj Mahal.
I know.
Okay. I mean, this is insane. Answer this. Why would somebody not talk to the officials in Santa Rosa that got completely wiped out? Coffee Park got completely wiped out in 2018, was it?
Yeah, I remember.
2017, whatever
Yeah.
it is. Completely wiped out. They are like 83 or 85% rebuilt. You know, and they have hills, it's not, whatever.
It's
But
not LA County.
it's not LA
It
County.
is
So
so
why would you
incredibly corrupt.
Yes,
Corrupt.
why would you not even have a conversation with the guys that helped rebuild San Diego? They did much better. Why wouldn't you have a conversation? But that's the mindset. Is that it's either corruption. I don't know. I mean, I'm
Oh, it's
speculating,
definitely
but
corruption. I've been reporting on
or
it long enough
or
to
it
know.
is gross ineptitude and mismanagement. And
It's
I'll
that
tell you
too.
this too. And I'll tell you this too, is the city of Malibu is run by consultants. We have consultants to review the geo stuff. We have consultants to review the coastal engineering stuff. We have consultants now to review the environmental health stuff. We have consultants to review our building and safety plan check corrections. Everywhere there is consultants. And guess what? The more hoops they make the residents run through, the more hours they get to bill.
Yeah.
We recently had requested based through FOIA, some records, and it's staggering how much they're billing at the cost of every time they meet with the homeowner or they ask for more corrections and they have to review again.
It's a
Well, guess
racket.
what? The meter goes up. So this is really a grotesque example of what I call the housing industrial complex. Look, we've all heard about the military industrial complex at play and how wars are created to benefit the defense contractors, and there is a complete economy surrounding it. Housing is a massive industry. And when something like this happens, Cece, people there is a lot of money that is at play. There is a lot of financial interests at play. And I would hate to think that that is a factor, but unfortunately, that seems real.
Malibu is dead, in my opinion. It's not coming back. We will never, ever see the Malibu that we had before. We lost so many landmarks, and the drive to Malibu at PCH was filled with historic landmarks that really made that drive so iconic. And we'll never see that again. And now they're trying to stop people who have lived there for decades and decades and decades that made Malibu what it was, gave it that personality, and they are forcing them out. And
And what I just absolutely struggle to get is the commercial real estate right now is tanking, right? I mean, there's like 70% vacancy in
yeah,
Malibu.
yes,
The schools are half as full as they should be.
yeah,
The population is about, when you drive into Malibu from the Santa Monica side, there's a little sign that says population 11,000. That's a thing of the past. Our population is probably somewhere like 6,000 right now, if that much. There are families and people that are looking to move every day. I just met a family over the weekend,
mm-hmm.
and they're throwing in the towel and they're saying we were moving to Montana.
Yeah.
I know another, couple of families that have moved to Arizona. I mean, there are those decisions that are happening. Our population is in decline. The city is dying. The fiscal situation is also not helpful at all, right? I mean, the property tax revenues have shrank, and we have massive spendings that have to happen. The city
It's
is
all over
dying.
LA County. It's LA County. I saw actually a social media video by a developer who was like, let's rebuild Third Street Promenade. I'm like, you got to fix the infrastructure there first. It is
I know.
so dangerous. Nobody wants to go to Third Street Promenade. That's why it's closed down. And it's been in steep decline. Malibu's always had trouble with retail businesses and restaurants. It's just there's not enough people coming to Malibu to help sustain these businesses, and that's why there's a revolving door. But now with two fires, within 7 years and wiping out both sides of town, it's not going to get rebuilt. You're only going to see corporate, loss leaders coming to retail loss leaders coming to Malibu, and it's Malibu is done. It's over.
Well, and I mean, look, here's what's happening, right? I mean, this ethos of slowing in the rural, keeping the rural characteristic intact, and therefore having a, slow growth ethos, and therefore making the design process very complicated, so people can, is going against that very ethos. Because, do I think that no one will ever buy in Malibu? No, absolutely not. I think they'll be, this is the nicest
Developers
place.
will.
This is the nicest place on the planet. Sooner or later, people will come grab the land. But guess what? It's not going to be our friends and neighbors and the locals that have lived here and have built the city.
No, and what
It'll
about
be
what
people.
about fire insurance? You have to be a
Yeah,
billionaire to afford fire insurance.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
only way they're
yeah.
going to give it to
And
you.
here's an opportunity for us to change that narrative,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we can rebuild in a way that is smarter. We can build the communities and the homes fire hardened, so the insurance companies are back, so they don't have to wince about it. And yet, instead of focusing on all of that, we are focusing on the bullshit minutia. I mean, my 84-year-old neighbor, if Faye asked me the question the other day, it's like, Abe, my house was standing here for the last 50 years. It hadn't moved, none of that. Why is the city asking for 2,000 reports on what it, on so many different things? Why am I being asked to be put on caissons and things like that? I can't afford it. I can't afford to spend $250,000 or $400,000 putting caissons in the house. I'm out. I'm done. So these are the kind of questions which are just so sad. They're just so heartbreaking. And then when you try to have these conversations, this is what happens.
Well, I appreciate all this knowledge, and we are going to push this story out continuously and monitor the city, monitor how many permits. We're at 3 permits now, right? Three.
We had 3 permits. Yep. A whopping
Three
grand
permits.
total of 3 permits. Yes.
And the number two permit, as you and I have discussed, went to a designer, interior designer who's owned.
That was the first permit, actually.
Oh,
That
that's
was
good
the
to
first
know.
permit. The second permit was, belonged to somebody I know, wonderful, wonderful gentleman, a longtime resident. So happy they got their permit. But their son is a developer and an expert. And in his own commentary, this is the hardest municipality that he's ever built in. And look, that is
Well,
my experience. That is my
that is
experience as well.
exactly what this interior designer, Kelly Worsler, basically said on her Substack, that she had to push really hard at the city. And this is her second home, it's not her first home. And she has this home listed on Proper Hotel, which she owns with her husband. It's listed for $9,500 a night. So we're talking about the first one goes to basically a high end Airbnb, and the number two goes to a developer, right? And
Well,
number
I mean,
three went to who?
number three went to a couple who are general contractors and builders
Okay, here we go.
who know what they're doing and were on it from the get-go. Now, these are wonderful people. Look, I mean, I know the permit number two, permit number three. My point is that they were experts in the process. They were on it from day one. And yet, if you hear their commentary, yet if you see how long it took them, it is just so disheartening. If these guys are struggling so much, what about the average Joe out there who's never, let alone built a house, but not even gone through a remodel before?
Yeah, this is just so disheartening. Well, thank you for the conversation, and we will get the story out there and we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks, Cece.